All right, well, thanks for tuning in again, everybody. We are going through chapter 4 in our book called The Treasure Principle. And today we're going to be looking specifically at roadblocks to giving. What is it that really keeps us from giving? Is it trust? Is it greed? Or, what is it that we just don't quite want to just let go and give back to God? Luke 12, verse 15 here says this. It says, "Then he said to them, 'Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions.'" So be careful of being greedy. Life's not all about how much we own. There's a lot of roadblocks to people not giving: unbelief, insecurity, pride, idolatry, power, control, and not to mention what our current culture is doing to us, just bombarding us with advertisements and just encouraging materialism at its highest level. And it's considered normal to keep more than what we give. I mean, that's how we were raised. That's how we, as we are, as Americans especially, I know that's how we are. But I think the greatest deterrent to why we are not giving is that we actually treat the world or this earth as our home. Rather than looking at this as a stopover place and heaven is our eternal home, we look at this as being the end all of everything when actually it's not. The Bible says this in Hebrews 11:13, we are pilgrims, we're aliens, we're strangers. Philippians 5:20 says our citizenship is in heaven, which is where it is. I mean, that's where we belong. When we choose to store, or where we choose to store our treasures, largely is where we think about of where our home is. I'll give you an example of this. When I lived in South Africa for 9 years, we originally went to live there for maybe 2 or 3 years. I was going to finish seminary there, and we had a house that came with, it was fully furnished. My in-laws owned the house. They bought it from an old couple that had, I think, passed away, or they got it from the estate or something. But the house was full of old, junky furniture. And a car came with it. It was a 1989 Opel Kadett. Stick shift, no air conditioning, just a small little decent car, but nothing special. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is where we're going to be for 2 or 3 years. I'm not buying anything nice. I'm not going to buy a nice car. I'm not going to fill this house full of nice furniture. It's all functional. It's fine. Well, that sounded good in theory when you're going to stay for 2 or 3 years, but we ended up staying there 9 years. And the furniture was awful. It was uncomfortable. Our TV was about this big. And so finally, as we lived there a little bit longer, I'd start investing here or there. Once I got a big recliner, a big overstuffed recliner, I was fine. All the rest of the furniture, I didn't care about anymore. As long as I had a comfortable spot to watch ESPN, I was good. But the cars that we owned they weren't junkers, but they weren't great. They just kind of got the job done. And the main reason we did that is because we knew at some point we were going to leave and go back to America. So why in the world would we invest, big money in a car or other expensive furniture or appliances? You should have seen our refrigerator. We had a family of 5 and a refrigerator that was about the size of a bar fridge, maybe a little bit bigger. When we came back to America, everything felt so big and huge, and like, oh my gosh, we have a refrigerator with an ice machine and everything, because we had been living like we were just passing through for so long. It says the carpenter, Jesus, has been busy for 2,000 years. He has gone ahead of us, and he's been building this. It says he builds a mansion for us, or some translations say he's building, my Father's house has many rooms. So he's building something great for us, and he's had a lot of time to do it. So everything that we have, that we send on ahead, is going to be there waiting for us. Okay, every blessing that we have given other people, every tithe that we've given, everything that we have given, the Bible says we lay up our treasures in heaven when we do those things. He's been building this for us for a long time. It's going to be incredible. It's coming home to a place we've never been before. You may have heard that line before. It's a John Denver song. If you haven't heard that, Rocky Mountain High. He's never been to Colorado. First time he went to Colorado, the words of the song, he says, I felt like I was coming home to a place I'd never been before. And that's what heaven is going to be like for us. It's going to be the ultimate place where we can feel at home. Sooner or later, everything that we own is going to end up in a junkyard. Did you know that? It's going to end up in a landfill. One way or another, at some point or another, clothes, cars, barbecues, couches, everything that you own, things that you quarreled about with your wife are going to end up there. Things that your children had fights about over who owned it or whose it was are going to end up there. Marriages have broken up over things that are going to end up in a landfill. Did you know that? I mean, because money is one of the biggest things that, that couples fight about. We're all going to part with our money. So the question is when? When is this going to come? And we don't know for sure. But one thing we do know for sure is that we're not taking it with us. This is what Jim Elliot, the missionary, said when he was talking about this kind of thing. He said, "He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep in order to gain what cannot be lost." So you're no fool if you're focusing and you're giving your energies towards storing up your treasures in heaven. Gain is precisely what Jim Elliot was wanting. He had the kind of life that he knew that he couldn't lose, even though he eventually did lose his life while serving. There was a show on PBS not long ago, and the only reason I know about it is because I read about it. I don't watch PBS personally. The last time I think I watched PBS was when I was watching Sesame Street as a 5-year-old, or Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, which I still, I know that I heard the movie was good, but I still can't stand the memories of that. What a boring show for kids. I'm sorry. Anyway, PBS is not something that I watch, but they did do a program called Affluenza, which I thought was interesting. So I started reading about it, and they gave some statistics on modern day materialism. I want to read this for you. It says, the average American shops 6 hours a week while playing with their children for 40 hours a week. Okay, something's a little messed up there. By the age of 20, all of us have seen at least 1 million ads for something to buy. Recently, more Americans, this is the one that I found super interesting. Recently, more Americans declared bankruptcy than actually graduated from college. More declared bankruptcy than we have college graduates. And 90% of divorce cases, arguments about money plays in the top 3 reasons for divorce, okay? 90%. Material wealth, we see, just doesn't make us happy. But yet, every single one of us, I think if I asked you to the person, if you had more money, would you be happier? And I think everybody would say yes. And we think of all the wonderful things we would do with money. My sons and I, we sit around and talk about what would we do if we won the lottery. You ever had those kind of conversations? And the first thing, and I love this about my kids, the first thing that like my youngest son wants to do is put a wood court in the church's gym, wood basketball court. He says, and then we're going to put turf on the field. Then we're going to build some buildings over at Justice College. I love that. It makes me want to start playing the lottery just so that maybe his wish will come true and we can do those kind of things. But we know that just having money doesn't necessarily make you happy. I want to read this for you. Here's some comments from some of the wealthiest people in history. W.H. Vanderbilt says this, the care of $200 million is enough to kill anyone. Says there's no pleasure in it. John Jacob Astor says, I'm the most miserable person in the world. And he was one of the wealthiest at the time. John D. Rockefeller says, I have made many millions and they have brought me nothing, no happiness at all. Millionaires seldom smile, says Andrew Carnegie. Henry Ford said, I was happiest when I was doing the job of a mechanic. I've got a friend of mine who is a multimillionaire who told me that he has way more stresses now than before he made his money. He says, I have way more to worry about now than I used to. We all think it's going to be the other way around, don't we? We just think if we had more money, we would have less to worry about. But it's actually the opposite. We think that we own our possessions, but in truth, possessions actually own us. There's nothing that makes a journey more difficult than carrying a lot of baggage through it. I know this, I'm about to leave for South Africa soon. We have 10 checked bags sitting by my door, already packed, ready to go. And it's ridiculous. It's like, why can't we just go with carry-ons and just go light? But the point, we're going to give away all that stuff when we get there. Literally, all of my clothes are fitting into a carry-on so that we can just give away stuff when we get there, which is great. But one time I was hitchhiking in Malawi. I know most of you probably haven't hitchhiked through a small African country, which was not the smartest thing to do. But it happened by accident. I was going to the lake one time with a friend of mine who worked for the Peace Corps. His name was Monty. Well, Monty came He said, I'll come pick you up. We're gonna pick you up over at the Bible college, and we're gonna go spend the weekend at the beach, at the lake. So, oh, great, man. So here comes two really cute girls in a convertible. Never had seen a convertible in Malawi at this point. They pull onto campus, they pick me up, throw our bags in the trunk, man. We're off to the lake for the weekend. Everything's going good. Until the girls leave before us, which was the plan. They were only gonna stay one night. We stayed 2 nights. And now we got to find our own ride home. Well, Monty didn't bother to tell me this little tidbit of information. Thus, we ended up hitchhiking home. Well, I had to hitchhike with a full bag full of books and, in those days, cassette tapes, my Walkman, everything and any binoculars, all kinds of stuff that I would have never have taken had I known I was going to have to walk halfway back to Lilongwe from Salima, which was about 90 miles. So we walked a long way. Finally, we got picked up by a pickup truck. We got taken to a gas station, and we ran into some people we knew who brought us back to the college. But I walked a long, stinking way with a bunch of extra luggage I didn't need. And that's how a lot of us go through life. We're carrying way more stuff than we need. Let's pay it forward, and let's rather spend our money on things that are going to last than things that aren't going to last, like those cassette tapes. Think about it like this. Every item that we buy is one more thing we have to think about, we have to talk about, we have to clean, we have to repair, we have to rearrange, we have to move, we have to fret over, and we have to replace it when it's gone. A couple of weeks ago, I had a garage sale, and the whole intent was not to make a lot of money, although we did make a decent amount. The point was get rid of all this junk. I'm just sick of so much stuff in my garage and our closets and all that kind of stuff. So basically, I shoved it all out onto the driveway, sold as much of it as I could, piled the rest of it in the back of a truck, and took it straight to Goodwill. And it felt so good. It's so liberating. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have done the same kind of thing before. Why do we continue to just hang on to stuff thinking that maybe one day we'll use it? I want to read this to you from Ecclesiastes 5:10 through 15. It's going to be on your screen here. It says this: whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. As goods increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit are they to the owners except to feast their eyes upon them? The sleep of a laborer is sweet, whether they eat little or much, but as for the rich, the abundance permits them no sleep. I have seen a grievous evil under the sun, and that's wealth hoarded to the harm of its owners, or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when they have children, there is nothing left for them to inherit. Everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and as everyone comes, so they depart. They take nothing from their toil they cannot carry in their hands. Okay, so what we have here is Solomon, the wealthiest man on earth who wrote this. He learned that affluence does not satisfy. He says it's all meaningless. And he had an endless supply of money. It never ran out. He tried everything, and that's what Ecclesiastes is all about. He's trying to find happiness through experiences, through money, through all the carnal type things that we as human beings try to run to make us happy. People tend to cling to things that they can't afford in hopes that it will satisfy them. So Solomon said this. He said in verse 10, he says, I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure at all. Solomon's conclusion, it was this. He says, when I surveyed all that my hands had done and I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, like chasing the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. No matter how much you spend on things, possessions, material things, the latest of this, the best car, the best computer, the best whatever, it's not going to satisfy you long term. It might satisfy you in the short term, but it's not going to satisfy you long term. Let's read this from 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 17. The Apostle Paul says this, command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. For our enjoyment, I love that. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up treasures for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. So what Paul is saying here is he's saying be generous, Okay, be willing to share, be rich in good deeds, so that you can take hold of the life that is truly life. It is not a life that is materialism or that is materialistic. The act of giving is a vivid reminder that God owns everything. Okay, there should be no reluctant giving. You ever had somebody give you something you knew they didn't really want to give it to you? Okay, it's not that kind of giving. God's money has a higher purpose than my pleasure, than my affluence, than my materialistic gains. Giving affirms Christ's lordship. It affirms that, Jesus, this is all yours, and it dethrones me and it exalts him when I give away my money. And as long as I still have something, I believe that I own it. And I'm not saying that you have to give away everything, but don't let the things that you own actually own you. Don't let it just take over your life, the idea of owning certain things. And money isn't really the only thing that we can give. We can also give our time, our wisdom, our expertise. I mean, we have plenty of people around the Grove here on a weekly basis. And I think the first thing that we think about when we think volunteers, we're thinking about people that are teaching Sunday school or that are shaking hands and greeting people and whatever. There's way more to volunteer work than that. Any kind of expertise that you have, you can help people with. Okay, it doesn't even have to be up here at the church that you're helping. Now, we do have guys that come here that are doing welding for us. We have people that are doing landscaping work for us, that are cutting grass for us. We have guys that have put fencing around our soccer field. Our one guy, John, who did that, he's over there now totally renovating some of the Justice College dorms. I mean, we have people that have these amazing skills that are diving in up here at our church. I'm sure your church has people like that too. When there's an opportunity to serve, they're always the same people that end up being there and ready to do it. But it's not so much their skills as much as it is their heart. You know, they want to give back. They want to do things for other people. And it starts sometimes with the church. They say, okay, what can I do at the church? And then oftentimes it'll lead from that. They'll meet other people and they'll see other needs that they can also meet along the way. So while our act of giving and giving a tithe and all those things are important, and they are important, but Jesus wants us to do it with a grateful heart and with a thankful heart. And there are oftentimes roadblocks to when we give. Okay, maybe it's we just want to hold on to everything. We want to hold on tight. Maybe you grew up in a family where you were poor and you think if you let it go, you're not going to get it back again. You know, I worked hard for that. Well, remember, God's the one that set you up to be able to earn that. You know, let's give him back a portion. Let's give him back a thank you. And remember to remind yourself that he owns everything. It's not ours. It's actually all his. Guys, I hope this was helpful this week. We'll see you again next week.